Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get the webinar started today. You should be hearing things now. I see some people are posting in the chat. The webinar has started. Today we'll be talking about how to market your small business for no money. So how to be as efficient as possible with marketing without spending any money at all, not accruing any extra costs. So any of the tips that I talk about today can be accomplished in under a few hours a week without spending any additional money. So just a little bit of background info here. I am Julia. I'm a CRM coach with Less Annoying CRM, and I've helped hundreds of small businesses set up and maintain their CRM accounts. I also help run Less Annoying CRM's marketing, and I only spend 20% of my time working on that. So that includes social media, blogging, email marketing, and webinars, only one day a week out of my time. And we still manage to send out a newsletter twice a month, post regularly on social media, and maintain a regular schedule of new blog posts and webinars just like these. So I'm going to share with you many of the tips that I've learned along the way and show you tools and strategies that I use to keep everything as efficient and cost-effective as possible. So before we get started, I want to explain how you can ask questions during the webinar. So to the right side of your screen, you should see a section called Questions. And that is our platform where you can enter in any and all questions that you have. And my teammate Eunice, who is already posted in the chat here, can help you out. If you see a question that you would also like to ask, go ahead and upvote it there or ask a new question at the bottom of the screen. And Eunice will answer, and I'll review any of the questions at the end of the conversation as well. So first off, why do you need to improve your marketing? So if we improve your marketing strategy, we can help you engage potential customers, stay front of mind with your current customers, and improve the customer experience, and most of all, grow your business. If you don't do marketing, you have no control over your growth. You're just totally relying on other people and word of mouth. People might not know who you are, which is why marketing will reach them, and your customers might forget about you. So it's important to remind them why you're great, or they might go somewhere else. So today, our goals are to do all of that with marketing, which is retain our current customers, attract new folks, and spend no money and as little time as possible while doing it with the tools that you already have. So for the sake of this call, I expect that you have the bare minimum of marketing materials, a website, a blog, a newsletter, and social media accounts. If you don't have one of these yet, get set up. There are free tools to help you create a blog and a newsletter, as well as free social media accounts. I would definitely suggest that you spend some money on your website so that you can buy your own domain name, but there are free tools there as well to help you get started. So feel free to post in the question section of the chat if you don't have one of these things and you need some help. And I would be more than happy to suggest some tools at the end of the call. So our call today is going to have 5 main focus areas and tips. I also plan on making a worksheet based on this information. I had a couple people in the last webinar ask for that. So that'll probably come next week. I'll email that all to you guys. But these are the 5 main tips that we are going to cover. And not every marketing strategy is the same, but these are going to give you a good roadmap towards tightening up your marketing. So if you have time, you can try a new tip each day, or if you're super busy, just tackle one a week. Either way, at the end, these marketing tips don't take more than an hour or two to complete, and some in even less time. So let's dive right in. Tip number 1 is to compile all your audience data. Get all your audience data in one place. And this, to me, is the most important tip of all because it gives you a list of your current audience so that you know who you're currently talking to. It will also help you create targeted groups or lists in the future to reach out to for marketing materials so that you don't have to worry about, oh, who can I contact about this new deal, this new feature, this new product? You have your list right away. And third of all, it gives you a list to compare to future audiences so that you get a better idea of who you are talking to or emailing. So first things first, we have to aggregate all that data together. You have to find out where your customers, leads, subscribers, and event attendees are. Export those spreadsheets from other systems. Write them all down. If you have them in an agenda book or you have a bunch of business cards, pop them in a spreadsheet. And then number 2, we're going to store it all in a single location. Obviously, I'm going to recommend a CRM for this. We are Less Annoying CRM, so we help people store all this data all the time. You can also keep this kind of stuff in an email marketing software if you already have that, or if you're still working towards getting these pieces of software. So finally, now that we have everybody in one place, we want to segment our audience. We want to say who is subscribed to what, who is a current customer and who isn't, who is interested in different products or services or offerings. It's very important to have these groups ready so that when the time comes, you have a long list of people to contact about new opportunities, sales, or even a regular newsletter. So I mentioned the CRM earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and pop over to that right now. We are looking at a demo account right now of mine. You'll see your workspace here in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm going to show you how I would get all my contacts into the CRM and group them. So for anybody who's used us before, you know that contacts are the bread and butter of the CRM. That's all the people or companies that you'll be talking to. And you can get them into the CRM in a couple of ways. You can add a new contact or a new company up here in the upper right-hand corner. That would be doing it by hand. You know, again, if you have business cards or you meet people one-off, or you can import them into the CRM in bulk. So under settings, I go to my import contacts page, and here we have our import wizard that shows you how I can import contacts from any of these mediums. So a spreadsheet, another CRM, an emailing system, social media, regardless of where your contacts are, we can get them into the CRM in bulk. So what I would do is I would just pick the option here that matches where my contacts are, and I would import that spreadsheet or from another system. The other option here too is that Less Annoying CRM can help you out. We do importing for customers all the time, so you can just upload your spreadsheet here and we'll import that for you. I ran a previous import batch in preparation for this call the other day, so I want to show you what that would look like. So you'll see here on the left-hand side, I got 33 records in. These are all people that I met at a conference. So I'm going to click view here. And now I have a nice list of all the contacts and the companies that they represent that I met at this conference. So you'll see too on the left or on the right-hand side here that I can take bulk actions on those imported records. And this is really important because we want to easily group our contacts, right? So one of the actions I can take is that I can easily attach everyone to a group. And groups in the CRM are that list building function. They're that categorizing function where I can tag contacts into different buckets. So what I can do here really easily is click attach each of these records to a group. And when I attach all of them, I'm going to say that they are all XYZ conference attendees, and they should all also be in my new lead drip. That's another group that I created. But you'll see that I can create groups about all sorts of things. I can have them for those newsletters I'm running, products people are interested in, events they attended with me. You can have all sorts of groups. So I'm going to add these folks to 2 groups. I'll add these records to the 2 groups. And now with a click of a button, everybody's in the proper group. I can show you that if I go to find a contact here. I hover my mouse over that. I get a nice drop down of all my groups. So I'm just going to go to that conference attendee group. And here's everybody that I talked to at that conference. It's also really easy to add people to groups based on not just imports, but other information. So from this Find a Contact page, I can filter or sort for any of the records that I want. And I can also just check off people that should be in a specific group and add them to a group from this page. And I can do it too from the individual contacts. So a lot of easy ways to add folks to groups. So I'm going to go ahead and head back to our presentation now. Just a quick recap here. These are our actions for the first tip. I'm going to do these after every tip so that you guys get a nice rundown of what you should be doing after each tip. Again, we'll be sending you a recording of this webinar, and I plan on making a worksheet, so you don't have to worry about taking super detailed notes, but I hope that these slides in particular help you and give you sort of a guiding way with each of these tips. So first things first, find all your contacts, then we're going to import them into the CRM and group them in proper categories. As you saw, it literally takes like 5 minutes per spreadsheet to do that. It's super easy. And if you do need help, you can always contact us, Less Annoying CRM support. At the end of this call, I am going to have our contact information up so that you know exactly who to contact, but we can always import your spreadsheets for you and show you how to group them. All right, so our next tip here is to put social media on autopilot. Why do we want to do that? There are a lot of things about social media that make it a suboptimal marketing platform for folks who don't want to spend a lot of money or a lot of time. First thing, we don't own the platform, and the companies that do are actively trying to capture your wealth. They're trying to make sure that you don't make free money from their website, right? Because they want you to pay them. So I've heard of way too many small businesses that used to make a lot of money from Instagram or Facebook just by posting and not using ads. but the algorithm changed, and then they no longer were getting as many leads. So they'd spent all this time, invested all this energy in a channel that eventually went away. And since we're trying to spend zero money, social media can be a great marketing tool if you're willing to spend money, right? If you're willing to buy ads, but we're not willing to do that. So all we want to do here is put social media on autopilot so that our company looks alive and active if someone were to go there, but we don't have to spend all of our time on these platforms or making posts. So we're going to do that first by scheduling our posts in advance. So at Less Annoying CRM, we use a tool called Buffer to schedule out our social media posts. Buffer has a great free tier that we started with, so if you need help scheduling posts, I definitely recommend that you check it out. That's Buffer, B-U-F-F-E-R. You can also use a scheduling tool on each platform, like Twitter and Facebook each have their own scheduling tools. You can use a spreadsheet and then just copy and paste stuff when you have to do it. But scheduling posts in advance makes social media so much easier because you don't have to worry about posting all the time. The tool takes care of that for you. And all you have to do is worry about engaging, right? So as long as you have the apps on your phone, you're getting notifications. You just check those sites when you get a notification about someone, mentioning you or sending you a message or something like that. So now that we have our posts scheduled in advance and we're posting more regularly, we can use the free analytic tools on each social platform or again on Buffer to see what posts are doing best. So this is going to give us an idea of what kinds of posts do best on each platform. So for example, Facebook might do really well with tutorials and videos, but LinkedIn is better for posting questions and starting a discussion with your audience. So these analytics help give us a better idea of, what will work. And again, I'm going to be bringing this up a lot throughout the webinar, looking at analytics and getting ideas for how we can improve. I would highly recommend that everybody have a notebook or a Google Doc or a note on their phone or something like that of ideas for improving your marketing strategy, because even having these around is really going to help you in the future when we actually get to putting these ideas to the test. And I'll get to that at the end of the webinar, but I highly recommend that you try that strategy out. So now that we've analyzed those posts, let's reuse, recycle, and repurpose our best content. Because again, we're trying to make social media easy. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. So if something worked or it's a top tweet or getting a lot of engagement, you can pretty much send the same thing out next month. You can change some of the wording. You can make content that sounds a lot like that in the future or that, kind of fits that formula. That's another reason why I love Buffer is it just tells us what our best posts are, and then I simply throw them into the queue again. So again, with social, just make your life easier, reuse, recycle, and repurpose your best stuff. So as a rundown of what we talked about here, you're going to want to set up a Buffer account, schedule your posts in Buffer, and create a task to remind yourself to reschedule whenever those run out. So this can take as little as 30 minutes. For me, I usually probably spend about an hour a month buffering, or at least an hour every other month maybe, because I'm buffering for a very long time out in advance. But for you, it could just be a couple weeks if you post more frequently, and so it can take as little as 30 minutes. Buffer has a great blog with social media how-tos, free email courses, and even webinars. That is what I read when I need social media advice, so I'd highly recommend checking it out. If you want to know the best practices of social media, make sure you're doing everything right. That's a really great website to look at. Because again, if you're scheduling everything out, you can have the time to think about how do I make these posts great, All right, so our third thing we're going to talk about today is because we're not taking advantage of social, we want to do everything we can with email marketing. So email marketing is great for a lot of reasons. You have direct access to your audience's inbox. That's something that most people are going to check every day. And you control your list. You can't take your followers with you, but you can export a list of emails. Finally, if we look at big trends in recent years, email marketing is still a better conversion tool than social media, which is why we want to focus our energy here if we're just trying to maximize our marketing strategy without spending money or time. So first, let's add our segmented lists to MailChimp, or you can export them from the CRM and import them into whatever email marketing program you use. So if you don't yet have an email marketing program, I definitely recommend checking out MailChimp because they have a great free tier that you can use forever, and it integrates with the CRM. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. If I go back into the CRM here, We talked about my groups earlier, that I had a client newsletter group and a new lead drip, because these are people that I want to receive that information. How do I connect those groups to my lists in the CRM though? Or my lists in MailChimp, pardon me. It's very easy. So if we go to settings here, I can go to set up email marketing integration. I already have my list in MailChimp, so all I have to do is click on my manage link groups button here, and then I can decide which group in the CRM goes to which list in MailChimp. I can also decide not to sync a group in the CRM to MailChimp if I wanted to turn that on or off. The important things to remember about this sync here are that you would sync one group in the CRM to one list in MailChimp. You're not going to want to sync multiple groups to a list, because that can cause some grouping problems in the CRM. The other important thing to remember is the sync is two ways. So if someone signs up for your list in MailChimp, or if you add them to the group in the CRM, they'll sync across. Similarly, if somebody unsubscribes from your list in MailChimp, we'll remove them from the group in the CRM. Not delete them, but just take them out of that particular group. You can have as many different lists as you need. I just have two, but I might expand that in the future. This is also very similar to how we actually segment our lists at Less Annoying CRM. We have two versions of our newsletter, one for clients and one for people who are not customers yet. So this pretty much matches how we do our main segmenting as well. If you have any questions about what this sync looks like on the MailChimp end, I'd highly recommend checking out a webinar that Eunice and I did a while back. It's currently on our YouTube channel. So if you just Google Less Annoying CRM YouTube, you'll find it. We have a playlist of all of our webinars, and this one is called Email Marketing 101. And that goes over how to set up this sync, how to send your first email, and what your strategy should be behind your larger email marketing plan. You know, why are you emailing? What are you sending? How frequently you're going to do that. So again, here I'm going to go back to the webinar, and we're going to continue on with our tips here. So now that we have our lists in MailChimp, you can send targeted emails to each list. So for example, for the holidays, if your lists are separated by location, you might want to send an email blast about where each location can buy your product in their area. If they're separated by interest, you might want to highlight different products in each email. Segmenting is just really important so that you can send people information that they actually want to read. Because if you're sending them stuff they don't want or stuff that's unsolicited, that's spam. We don't want to do that. So sending targeted emails not only helps you with your engagement, but it helps your customer as well find the information that they want. So the final thing we're going to do here is look at the data. We're going to see who is reading what. MailChimp spits out data after every single email you send, so you can see what lists are actually reading and clicking on your content, what they're engaging with. So using this data, again, you can start to build ideas for how you can improve your email marketing. So for example, Less Annoying CRM, the reason we have that split now with our newsletter is because we started segmenting our CRM tips newsletter and seeing, you know, how many people who are not users are actually even reading the newsletter. And it turned out not only did we have more subscribers that weren't current users of Less Annoying CRM, they were reading our newsletter at a higher rate than even our users. So that let us know that this is a huge pool of untapped potential and that we want to start sending them much more targeted content and content that they're actually going to appreciate and read. Kind of things like these webinars, right? That they're helpful whether you use the CRM or not. Okay, so just a quick rundown here. Our actions right now are that we're going to sync our groups with lists in MailChimp. Again, that takes 5 minutes. Compose a targeted email. This is where things can take longer depending on how fancy you want to get. For me, doing our CRM tips emails, that probably takes me half an hour, maybe 45 minutes if I'm doing something a bit different. But the third thing here is we're going to schedule a task to check in on our email stats a few days later so that we can get an idea of, you know, did that piece of content do well? Did anyone even open that email? Did they click on the link, my call to action? That's the information that we want to take a look at so we can, again, start to build an idea of what's actually happening with our marketing. So total time here is probably about an hour, could be more depending on how long it takes you to make that email. But if you need help, again, you can contact LA CRM customer support for syncing help and check out that webinar if you need email marketing strategy help. So our fourth tip here is to make content that will help pull people down your funnel. So what does that mean? Basically, like sales, content also has a funnel. So what does that funnel look like? We refer to it as tofu, top of the funnel, mofu, middle of the funnel, and bofu, bottom of the funnel. So what does that look like for content? If we take the CRM, for example, top of the funnel are people who are in our target market, but they have pain points that a CRM can help, but they don't yet know what a CRM is or that a CRM is probably the best solution for them. So for us, these are people who run small businesses or they're a part of a small business. They know they need help, so they're just looking for advice on the internet. If we go one step down, so closer to actually becoming a customer, we've got MOFU, middle of the funnel. These are people who maybe have some awareness of your product or what it does. They have an idea that it might help them, but right now they're mainly doing research on what they should be getting, you or a competitor, that kind of thing. So these are people who are considering buying a CRM to help them stay organized, but they need to know what a CRM is first and how it can help them, right? That a CRM is a better option than, for example, an email marketing program or their email client in general, right? That those are different things. Then we've got bottom of the funnel. These are people who know about us in particular. They know Less Annoying CRM. They're considering buying us, and they're comparing us to somebody else, right? Another CRM program. So for you, this could be, folks who are very, very close to buying, people that you're actually in direct communication with most of the time. And now that we know what our funnel is, we can start to build our content from the bottom up. And it's very important that you do bottom up instead of top down, because if you get someone at the tofu level, but you have no mofu or bofu content, right? Nothing to catch them in between, they're just going to leave your website or leave your newsletter or unsubscribe because there's nothing there for them, right? So if we build from the bottom up, even if someone comes in at the tofu level, eventually we're going to have content that pulls them down our funnel. And we at Less Annoying CRM learned this kind of the hard way. We looked at our stats on our website. We saw that a ton of people were reading our content on small business definitions and startups. So we made more content like that. And guess what happened? Nothing, because people were staying at that tofu level and then leaving because we didn't yet have a strong mofu tier. So now we're really working on that mofu tier before we go back to tofu and start improving our content at that level. So again, we're going to want to look at our analytics here. Just like I talked about how we did at Less Annoying CRM, you're going to want to see what people are reading, what are they engaging with, and are they clicking through further? Are they clicking a free trial button or a buy now button after they've hit a certain bit of content, right? Or are they, emailing you to set up a meeting, whatever it is that you actually want to have happen. So we do this by looking at Google Analytics. If you don't know what that is, talk to your web developer and see if it was installed on your website so you can take a look, or look at your web development services and see if that's automatically there. Because knowing the numbers can help you produce better performing content in the future. And it can give you an idea of what is going right now so that you can test content like that going forward. Speaking of that, we got to do our actions first. So you're going to want to come up with 10 bofu content ideas. That can take you just 5 minutes. Think what are common questions that I get asked at the beginning when I'm working with somebody. What do people need to know about my business or my service or how it can help them? Number 2, schedule time to write or find that bofu content. So I write 1 post a week thereabouts. You could just find content out there that already fits this and curate it for your audience, or you could write your own. Obviously, writing your own is always helpful because it's showing that you're an expert and giving your own knowledge. And then number 3, we're going to schedule a task to look at Google Analytics once a month so we can get an idea of what blog posts are popular, what blog posts are people clicking away from, so we can look and see why, what's happening here. That's going to take about 1 to 2 hours. Depends on how much time it takes you to write, as well as understand Google Analytics there. I would definitely recommend Googling Google Analytics tutorials. I know that sounds silly, but really Google Analytics has like a million different things it can do. You don't need to know all of them, right? You just need to know the one right now that tells you how you can look at your posts, see how they're doing, and see people's behavior on each page, right? If you need help coming up with those bofu ideas, I highly recommend that you talk to your customers as well. So making a habit of keeping track of those questions customers have and using them for future blog posts is something that I do. I'm a CRM coach, so I talk to customers all day. So I have a Trello board, which is like an organization app. You can think of it as like an online version of a corkboard where I just keep those ideas and then I use them for blog posts that I do. All right, so now we come to the final tip, and that is all going to be about testing our strategy. So I've been bringing this up throughout the webinar, and the final part of our conversation today is all about figuring out how do we know if what we're doing is working? So how do we know if all these ideas we have for improving are actually good ideas or not? So the first thing we're going to do here is take stock of the data that we already have. So I've talked about looking at social media, looking at Google Analytics, looking at your email marketing analytics. We can do all of that and see what's going on and get ideas of what changes we can make. I'm also going to cover in a little bit here a tutorial in the CRM about how you can gather more data from there. So now that we've gathered our data, let's come up with a hypothesis. Or really, you can think of this as coming up with two versions of something. What would do better? An email with a subject line that just says, December 2017 Less Annoying CRM newsletter, or an email with a subject line that says something more enticing and highlights the post inside, like end of the year wrap up, how did we do, ? Something like that, right? Changing it up. So you've come up with a couple of these hypotheses, and now the important thing is to run an actual test on it. And we call this A/B testing. A/B testing, otherwise known as split testing, is where you take two versions of something, so like we talked about version A and version B, and you see which one performs better according to a certain metric. So in the example that I gave, we want to test two subject lines in an email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my list in half in MailChimp, and MailChimp has a tool that does this for me, so it's very easy. I don't have to even think about it. I just say I want to do an A/B test, and they split everybody for me. And I say I want to send half of my list this email with the subject line, and the other half this email with the other subject line, and then I want to see which email gets more opens. So that's my metric that I'm measuring, right? I want to see the open rate change, because subject line, the first thing they see before they open the email is the subject line, so it makes sense to test that variable. But you can test other variables too. So that's how A/B testing works. And there can be a couple of outcomes here. You can either have one version clearly be better than the other. One has a 60% open rate, the other has a 10% open rate. You can have nothing conclusive really happen. So maybe they each have a 30% open rate. Or you can have a very small change, and it can be so small that it's not necessarily statistically significant. Maybe one has a 20% open rate, the other has a 22% open rate. That doesn't necessarily tell you anything. So you've kind of got a couple of options when you get an inconclusive outcome like that. You can either continue testing and see if maybe after sending 7 more emails, if you get a conclusive number, if you average all those open rates together. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to run this A/B test again next year and see if I get some better data that time. So you've got a couple options there. Again, I'd highly recommend testing email marketing because, like I said, we want to invest our time here because this is where we can actually get people to convert. So you can test a lot of things with with email marketing. We talked about subject line, send time, frequency, sender name, content, your call to action, so like the button at the bottom of the screen. And MailChimp makes it very easy to A/B test. It is built-in tools for how to do that. If you're not sure how to A/B test, email me at the end of this. You can just respond to the email that you get at the end of this with a recording, and I can send you an article I have about A/B testing with MailChimp. Plus, MailChimp has a ton of articles on this themselves. So if you need help deciding, what A/B test should I really be running, that's definitely a good thing to look at. So I'm going to take us over to the CRM really quickly because we've talked about grouping, MailChimp, but let me show you how you can gather marketing data from your data in the CRM. Something that people often want to know is what channel of theirs is actually converting. And a way that we can test this is through our pipelines. So pipelines are a process tracking tool where it lets us create statuses and custom fields, attach that process to a contact or a company, and track their progress. So by default, every CRM account is going to have a leads pipeline for tracking their leads, so we can track where are leads coming from, basically, and how many people coming from each channel are actually converting. So the first thing I'm going to do here is customize my pipeline so I can collect that kind of information. So if I go to settings here, customize your pipelines, and then I click edit here under my lead pipeline, you'll see that I'm in the background of my pipeline, that settings page, where I've got the steps in my process. And then the thing I really care about here on the left-hand side are my custom fields. So I created a custom field for lead source as a dropdown. So you pick one option off the dropdown. And if I edit that field, you'll see that I have all my channels here. So you might have different channels, you might have more, you might want to break down every single different conference or all your business networking groups. But having this lead source list gives me an idea of where my leads are coming from. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. There are a lot of other fields that you could do as well for marketing, but we're just going to focus on this one. So if you do have questions about things you can track, feel free to post them in the questions tab or in the chat, and Eunice would be more than happy to answer, and I can show you how to do that at the end of the call. So if I go to my lead report right now, you'll see if I click on any of my individual leads, I'll click quick edit here on the right-hand side, I can see exactly where each lead came from. So this guy came from an event or a conference. And you'll see too that my lead report aggregates all my leads in one place, so it's really easy to pull that data together. So I'm going to pull a report right now to see how many leads from a specific lead source actually converted this month. I want to see my conversion rate for a specific lead source. So the way I'm going to do that is first, I'm going to say, show me all the statuses where the lead source was event or conference. And I also want to make sure these are just leads from the past month. So I don't want to do all time. I'm just going to do the past month. So I'm going to say is November, I think it's the 15th through December 15th. Okay, I'll apply that filter. And we're looking at 33 leads total came in through events and conferences. So I can tell that by looking at the number here in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to now change that filter. So instead of all statuses, I just want to see the sales that I won. And now I know that I won 7 leads out of those 33. So that can be really helpful to take a look at here. So you can see and calculate your conversion rate. You can also get an idea of, wow, you know, this lead source converts really highly, but I'm just not getting enough leads from that source, so that you can know to then maybe work harder on getting more leads. Or vice versa, you can say, wow, I'm getting a lot of volume here, but not converting a ton. You can either figure out what's going wrong there or decide, you know, maybe I'll just spend less time on that channel. So it can give you a lot of good information about how your marketing is working. So I'm going to pop back here to our presentation and just finish off with our actions here. So the first thing, we want to just take stock of our data, whether it's email marketing, Google Analytics, social media, come up with 5 of those hypotheses or borrow some common ones from the internet. You can just Google A/B tests I should be running on my small business, and I'm sure you'll get a bunch of awesome articles. I can also suggest some if you're not finding any good ones. And then the third thing here is we want to schedule your A/B test. So for example, right now we're running an A/B test with sender name, with Let's Annoying CRM's emails. Once that A/B test is over in about a month, I'm going to start another one with the style of the email. I'm going to start sending emails that have different tones. You know, one that sounds like it's coming directly from me, Julia, and I'm curating content, and the other that's a little bit more general or less personal, I should say. And we want to see which one does better. So the total time spent here, 1 to 2 hours, depending on how much time it takes you to come up with those hypotheses again. For example, this takes me no time now, right? Because it's built into my schedule with all these tasks. But for you, initially, it might just take an hour to get everything scheduled properly and to understand what A/B testing is. So if you need help, email me again, and MailChimp also has a ton of articles to help you out. So that is our webinar. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm not seeing any new questions here, but I'll just go over a couple ones that we've gotten so far. The first one is, yes, you are going to get a recording of this webinar so that you can use it later and refer to it later. I'll also be working on a post for you guys of all these actions so that you can use it as an easy checklist, and I'll send that to you in the future. The last one we got here is, can you do bulk emails from groups? Yes, you can with that email marketing integration. We don't have an email client in the CRM, but you can just integrate with MailChimp and use their tools for that. Thank you guys again so much for watching. The last thing I'm going to talk about here is just feedback. We're a small business just like you. We'd really, really appreciate knowing how we did. If you found this useful, if you have a lot of feedback, the whole post idea for the actions, that's from feedback from our webinar. So it really does make change, and it makes us make our webinars better. So I'm going to post the feedback form in the chat. You'll also get an email for it after the webinar. I'd really love it if you filled it out. I'd really appreciate knowing how we can improve and make this webinar better for people like you in the future. So thanks again for watching. Feel free to get in touch at info@lessknowingcrm.com or call us at 877-666-6467. I'm going to end the webinar right now, but Eunice said I will be around to answer more questions in the chat or the questions area afterwards.